Oh, well. Why don't we go to tape?
Hey, Don, Dan Jennings, how are you?
Good. Ah, boy, that's a nice background.
Well, I'm here in Stowe, Vermont, so I just happen to have a nice photo at the Trapped Lodge of their Highland cattle,
Hmm,
and that we took last summer, and so I kind of use that as my background frame for my Zoom conference calls to make it a little more local flavor to it.
good. Um, uh, the, the way I like to work, I've had a long-standing interest, obviously, in aviation. I used to work for Aviation Week, and but our audience is small business, and I wanted to talk about how private small businesses don't realize how effective small business having a small plane or charter can be in adding, and that's what I'd like to concentrate. If that's something you're comfortable with,
Sure.
okay. So the way we do it is I first ask you your personal background, then a little bit about your company, and finally a website, and then we go from there for about 27 minutes.
Okay, I'll do my best. I got a pretty crazy lifestyle here, but go ahead. We'll get into it.
Okay. I- And more importantly, explain what your company does in that part of
Sure.
it. Okay.
What's your subscribership, Don?
I'm sorry.
How many subscribers do you have to your blogs and video blogs?
Well, the way I put it is, in all of our places, we have 1 million uniques every month. Uh, So it's split up amongst them, but generally about 1 million uniques. And we've been around a long time. We just switched to video over the last couple of months, but we've been around radio for now almost 17 years.
Wow,
So,
great.
okay, and so we'll start after 5 seconds for the engineer. Okay.
You got it.
Don Mazzella here for Small Business Digest. We have with us today Dan Jennings. He's going to talk about the small business marketplace because he's in a unique intersection to tell us about it. But more importantly, we're also going to discuss why using smaller planes and charter may be a way of increasing sales. Dan, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Don, and it's a pleasure to be here today. It's an exciting time in aviation. Close my door here. It's an exciting time in aviation right now. We're seeing some of the highest demand that we've ever had, and it's a good time to be a seller. It's a challenging time to be a buyer, but there's a lot of reasons to consider private aviation for your business expansion and to reduce your time needed to do your trips and grow your business, as well as throw in COVID and many other facets that make commercial travel becoming more and more difficult every day. I've been in this business for going on 20 years. We're based in Palm Beach, Florida. We have an office here in Vermont, where I am now. We have an office in Paris. We have an office in Toluca, Mexico, and we're an international business. My company is called The Private Jet Company, www.theprivatejetcompany.com. We conduct anywhere from 40 to 50 transactions a year on the buy and the sell side. And we work almost exclusively with high net worth individuals that own their own businesses, you know, from small businesses that are growing up to large multinational corporations. But primarily our business is individuals that are entrepreneurs that own a company. And go ahead.
No, you keep
Yeah.
going. You're on a roll.
And what we find that a lot of these folks come to us is let me start with what's changed in our business in the last 5 years. So when Trump came into power, he put in place tax policy, which was very positive for the private jet sector. And the reason it was positive was because it allowed you to take 100% write-off on the acquisition of an aircraft. So for instance, if you went out and spent $3 million on a private jet, and that still exists today, you buy a $3 million pre-owned private jet, you can write off that $3 million against your income today. So if you had a year that you made $6 million, your taxable income would be reduced to $3 million. So it'd be $1.5 million tax savings on a $3 million purchase immediately. It's immediate write-off of 100%. Now you could take it over time, over 7 years, or as long as you want to, but you do have the ability, if possible, to take it all in 1 year. So it's very substantial. So the government helps you acquire this aircraft. You do delay the taxes. You are going to pay the taxes when you sell that aircraft, and you have a recapture for whatever you sold the plane for at that moment. But it does shield that income very significantly. Second is that not only COVID, even before COVID, many clients, especially in less served markets. So if you're sitting in South Florida or New York, you're a well-served market with lots of commercial flights. Even those markets now have less and less commercial flights and schedules and availability. And then, as we all know, it's a real challenge going to the airport and going through the, if you got a 2-hour flight, get ready for a 5-hour day. It just is what it is. And that's becoming more of a struggle for everybody. So now a whole day is gone to go 2 hours for a customer. So people are confronted with, do I drive? Do I fly? Do I, charter? And how do I make sense of it? Well, it's never going to be equal to flying on the airlines, dollars wise, but there's more than just the cost of the ticket. There's your time. There's your ability to spend time with the customer. There's the ability to bring the whole team along to hit 2 or 3 locations in a single day and then return home to your families at night. So it gets to be, it's not about luxury. It's really about time machine. We call our business the time machine. It's not something I usually ever have to try and sell to somebody how great it is to fly on a private jet. It's great, but it's not like you're getting it's a hot tub. It's an aircraft. You got a seat. It's comfortable. But here's what really makes it change is rather than dreading the trip, you're looking forward to the trip, because the travel portion of it is one of the better parts of your whole journey. When you call your crew up and you call your management company and, hey, I want to depart tomorrow out of Teterboro at 10 a.m. and we're going to hit Nashville, Palm Beach, and Charleston, and then fly back home. Plane arrives at 9 a.m. Plane's sitting there at 9 a.m. You roll in at 9:15 because you got stuck in traffic. You drive on to the ramp. The gate opens. You drive literally to the wing of the plane. The crew meets you outside. They throw the luggage inside. You step onto the plane. For maybe 10 seconds, you're on the ground. The door closes. The crew at the airport parks your car and valets it. The plane starts up and you leave. And then you land and the reverse process happens. The rental car comes out to the wing of the plane. You don't go through security. You don't go inside the building. It's on the ramp. You get on the ramp. The car is sitting there. They throw the bags in the car. You start the car, you leave. So now your 2-hour journey took you 2 hours and 5 minutes. During that flight, you're communicating with your phone. We have what's called text and talk in our business now. So your phone is exactly the same as on land. People don't even know you're in the air. Doesn't cost much. It's seamless. You're able to communicate with your customers. You're able to sit with your employees on the plane and strategize and talk about business. You're able to send your plane to pick up a customer and have him meet you. A lot of guys use their aircraft as not only a travel tool, but a business tool. When they come in, they're competing against others to try and win a very sought after project. Maybe it's development, maybe it's whatever it is. And the partner has a variety of customers that are competing against you. When you come in on your aircraft and maybe it's branded and your name's on the tail or your logo's on the tail, or maybe it's not. But a lot of these guys, they always make the point of having their partner or their potential partner or the person they're trying to woo, meet them at the plane. Hey, pick me up in my jet. Changes the attitude. Hey, I'm a successful guy. I want to do business. Just does, it's very interesting how that works. And it also changes the attitude of this guy's serious about business. This guy does things quickly, and I want to, consider him as a potential partner. So I've seen a lot of guys that they spend a lot of energy on that and a lot of focus on that. They also use it to recruit talent, recruit employees. It's another way to bring in high caliber talent that sees this as a perk to be able to travel in a corporate jet with the company and do business travel. Maybe it's not a jet. Maybe it's a turboprop and it's doing regional missions. But there's no other way to put it. It's a time machine. And the time machine gives you the one thing that all of us lack and none of us can create no matter how well we do, and that is time. And you just don't have that ability in life. And, I even got a client that's a former CEO of a public company. He's 85 years old and we bought now 3 aircraft. And he said to me multiple times, boy, this just changed my life, because before this, the thought of getting a plane or going out into airlines, I just never wanted to go anywhere because it was too much of a struggle. He's had a stroke. Now he's got his own plane. This guy's, going fly fishing, places that he ordinarily certainly couldn't go. And he does it on, very short notice, brings his family along. Everybody's excited to go. It just is a game changer. But it doesn't come inexpensively. It's an expensive endeavor. The aircraft itself is one portion of the expense. The second portion is the continuing operating cost of that aircraft. And so there are substantial expenses. So, on the pros and cons, the pros, is time, is taxes, and the government helping you finance it. The negatives are that this aircraft is going down in value. It's expensive to own and operate. And it's like anything in life, it's just another asset that you have to maintain and hold. What we do to help customers, and what the industry does to help customers, is once you own that jet, most guys don't want to be in the jet business. They've got their business of selling tools or real estate or whatever they're doing, and they have it with a management company. There's many, many management companies out there. And that management company is now a phone call. You call them, hey, I want to leave tomorrow at 9 a.m. They are in charge of your crew. They're in charge of maintenance of your aircraft. They're in charge of dispatch. They're in charge of making sure the rental car picks you up on the other side, help you with the hotels, everything. And then they're also in charge, if you want, to have the plane charter when you're not using it. So it's driving revenue. It's helping you cover your fixed costs, which are your insurance, your crew, your hangar, your management fees, your costs that exist whether you fly or not fly. And then there's what's called variable costs, which are your fuel, your engine programs, et cetera. So that chartering never makes it free. A lot of people like to think, well, I'll buy a plane and it'll charter and I can fly for free. It doesn't really work that way. But it does substantially reduce those costs so that it makes your cost to use the plane less and less. But again, it doesn't go to free. So that's another benefit. It's good for your wallet. It's good for the plane, and it's good for the crew to be using it. It's an asset. That asset needs to move. Those wheels need to turn. Those turbines need to spin. So those are all important parts of owning an aircraft. And, we used to say in our business that if you don't fly 150 hours a year, don't buy a jet. That's all kind of gone away. Over the last 5 years, we've seen probably the majority of the customers are 100 hours a year, 75 hours a year. And the reason that's changed is not because it made more financial sense. It's because when you start chartering, it's a mixed bag. There's no consistency. So you call up a charter broker. Hey, I need a 6-passenger aircraft to go tomorrow from Miami to Louisiana. Okay, they're going to offer you 2 or 3 planes. The price is going to be different every single time. What actually shows up on the ramp, you're not going to know the condition it's in. You're not going to know what if things are working right, which things break all the time. And I don't mean mechanical. I mean like a window shade, which doesn't seem like a big deal unless you're sitting in that window. The seats don't lay down right. They don't sit up right. It's just a plethora of things. And it's disappointing when you spent $35,000 that day. And guess what? That didn't work. And they don't say, oh, well, flight's free because the windshield shade didn't work. It's just, sorry, the windshield shade didn't work. And, there's a lot of things that happen. And it's just not a consistent experience. Whereas you go stay at the Four Seasons, you spend $600 a night in New York. It's the same every single time. It's not that way in private jets. You own your own private jet. It's a consistent experience. And we found a lot of and then also another very interesting we've seen happen over the years. And I kind of call this rich person math is people that don't really meet the requirements of total usage. And they're not meeting the usage that would generally be used for buying a plane. They say, well, listen, here's my problem. Every time I go to fly, I'm confronted, do I charter, spend $30,000 on this trip, or do I just take the airlines and spend $2,000 on first class? And they feel guilty saying, I'm gonna spend $30,000 when I could have spent $2,000. And then they don't do it. Then they get to the airport and they're like, Jesus Christ, here I made $7 million this year. Why didn't I do this? This is crazy. And they say, well, but if I own the jet, well, of course I'm going to take my jet. So it takes that thought out of their mind. Kind of the reason people buy, second home, third homes. They don't use them a lot, and they certainly can stay at the best hotel in town or rent a house. But you know what? I've got my money. I'm particular. I want to control things in my life, my experiences, my limited time off, my usage for business, and in their mind, and I don't think they're wrong, it's a justification that makes sense. It changes their outlook of it, their perception of it. So now, of course, I'm going to fly private, at least my plane. And then, of course, now that I have a private plane, I'm going to fly more, So, hey, maybe we'll go to Aspen 2 times a year. Maybe I'll go see that client in Texas that I only see once every quarter. I'll go see him, twice a quarter. I'll send my team out there. I'll fly him to meet, whatever it may be. All of a sudden, this tool becomes much more valuable to you than you ever perceived. Then the bills start coming in, you start tampering it down a little bit. But again, it is for everybody for sure, but it's a math problem, and everybody spends their money in different ways. It's funny because we deal all day, every day with high net worth folks, and I've had clients that are flying around a $45 million plane, and they're worried to death about the cost of the sushi that they catered. And then other people are spending $2 million on a plane, and they don't mind spending as much money as they can for crew and paint and Wi-Fi and everything else. So everybody's spending their money somewhere, and most people, the more travel they're doing and the higher net worth they're doing, and the more they can justify it in their business, they migrate into private. And it's just what's happened over time, and what's happening even more today. COVID took away what we call the guilt factor. In 2008, when all the car manufacturers flew to Washington, D.C. with their hands out and asking for a government bailout on their private jets, it blew our business up. Business tumbled in value, planes went down, plunged in value. We went into the 2008 crisis, and we never recovered. Planes are supposed to go down in value, but they went down a lot more than they're supposed to. Planes normally in our business for 40 years went down 2-3% a year. It was considered the highest residual asset class in the world, better than gold. That all went to hell in 08. In 08, planes went down as much as 10-20% for 1 year. And then they kind of leveled off to 8-9%. But then since Trump came back in power and the tax advantages came back in, and the general economy has been as strong as this, we're back to the 2-3% a year of residual value loss. So it's whether that stays or not, or where the world stays or not, who knows? But one thing that has definitely changed is the perception of the guilt factor. People felt guilty. Now they don't feel guilty. They're like, hey, you know what? I've got a successful business. I worked my career building this. I've got wife, I've got kids, I've got grandkids, and I've got a house in Aspen, Palm Beach, New York. I'm going to go to those places, and I'm going to fly privately. That's what my money's for. It's about changing my life. It's about making me enjoy my life. And it's about tackling my safety of myself and my family and my employees. And it's a wholesale change. I would say, and this is just a guess, in the last 12 months, we probably had a 30% increase industry-wide of first-time flyers buying jets. Charter, probably 100% increase of first-time charter customers. So it's so strong. NetJets quit selling NetJets. NetJets sold out. They don't sell light jets. They don't sell mid-sized jets. They have some heavy jets left. They stopped selling them. They said, we have no more to sell. The manufacturers are sold out, and we're not selling any more NetJets. They won't sell you a card. They do not have enough to supply the current customer base they have. What they already do is, NetJets has 600 some planes. Great. But each plane, they sell fractions up to 1/16. So they've got whatever it is, 10 people, 12 people owning each a fraction of that plane. A lot of those people are flying every holiday and every weekend and et cetera. They're not on planes. So they go out and they charter in the industry. And that's been fine, except for now, everybody else is chartering. So there's just less and less and less planes. And consequently, that's going to raise the prices for charter, which is going to make the option of owning a plane a little more attractive, because it's always compared to charter and how much does it save me in money and consistency, experience, et cetera. But charter prices are going up, and they should go up. They haven't changed in 10 years. So they are going to go up. They are going up. And there's been a consolidation in our business, which is the first time in history. So you have a consolidation of Wheels Up and VistaJet that went out and acquired, between the two of them, about 10 different operators of private jets. And they've started to control large markets, the East Coast market, the West Coast market. And then if you want to use their product, you got to go through them, and they control the price. So they're out selling jet cards to folks. And there's a reason to do all this stuff. There's a reason to buy a plane. There's a reason to charter. There's a reason to buy a jet card. There's a reason to buy net jets. And it all depends on usage, taxes, how much you're going to fly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But all these options are just going up in price, including buying a plane. Right now, inventories are down 40% in our industry. So we're no different than every one of your clients, your customers, and your listeners. There is more demand than there is supply. We have all the customers we can want, and we don't have enough sellers to feed those customers. It will change one day. When it changes, I don't know.
Dan, your website again, please.
Our website is www.theprivatejetcompany.com, and that's tThe, theprivatejetcompany.com. And we've got programs which are kind of interesting where you can buy a plane, again, for that $3 to $4 million strike. It's a very particular set of aircraft and age and hours that will be accepted. We then lease it to a major operator. He pays the pilots. He pays the insurance. He pays all of the maintenance, scheduled and unscheduled, and he writes you a guaranteed rent check for 5 years. So then you can still use the aircraft up to 125 hours a year. You can take your full tax benefits because you own the plane, and somebody else pays the bill and writes you a rent check. Is it a big money maker? No. But what it is I got my tax benefit. So there's my tax benefit. I've got a reduced cost to fly. So I'm flying about half the cost of charter. And I've got rent check that will subsidize and almost 100% pay my debt service if I finance the plane. So let's talk about financing. Financing in our business is a very well-developed business. And you're seeing anywhere from 2.75 to 4% interest rates. And those interest rates are, of course, driven by credit, but more importantly, driven by usage. If the plane's going to be mostly charter, the interest rates are higher. If the plane's going to be mostly owner use, the interest rates are lower. And the rationale is the airplane's going to be better condition and a better asset as collateral for the lender. So they're all 5-year terms, almost exclusively in our business. You're about a 75 to 80%, sometimes even a 90% loan to value. So these, what we call triple net leaseback programs, we see those at about 75% LTV. But the bigger the plane, the bigger the money, the bigger the credit, then you can get up to 90% with some of the lenders. There's some really interesting products out there with PNC and B of A. They're restrictive on what you can do and how much you can charter, but very aggressive. And it gets interesting. So you can go out and borrow that money cheaply. A lot of our clients that are sitting in equities, they'll take that money and go and borrow it against their equity portfolio and borrow it at 1.5% and block out an equity portfolio. So we see that as well. I'd say 50% of our clients or more pay cash. That's just what we see. But again, there isn't too many reasons that owning a jet doesn't make sense. But certainly if you don't fly, it doesn't make sense. If you don't have the capital needs, it doesn't make sense. If you can't take the tax advantages, you'd have to say I fly a lot and I have to have a jet. And then you can still take the taxes, it just takes longer. So it gets complicated with all things taxes, but it's what's driven our business for the last 5 years from a 10 years of a buyer's market to the last 5 years of a seller's market.
Dan, two questions. The first one is, do you keep crew on salary, or do you advise getting a crew as you need it?
So that question comes down to how much you're going to fly. But let's just say you're a normal flyer, you're flying 300 hours a year. If that plane is going to charter, you always want to have your own crew, because under FAA rules, Part 135, that crew has to go through a training and has to be go through what's called conformity with that particular operator. So you couldn't have random guys show up. All those guys have to go through that multi-month process. So you have to have full-time crew. Now, if you've got a single pilot light jet that you're not chartering, okay, you run one guy on that and bring a second guy in if you want to occasionally. That's an option. But once you get into mid-sized jets, most of those are 2-pilot aircraft, even for what we call non-revenue or Part 91 operations. So in general, you're always having full-time crew, at least one. but definitely 2 if the plane's going to charter. And you could have 4 crew if the plane's chartering a lot, but it gets to be a math problem. The more crew you hire, the more you have to fly to pay for those crews. But it can make sense at the charter demand we have now and the spread between the operating cost and the charter revenue. So it's again, it's the heyday right now of charter, of demand. And an interesting little factoid is looking back to 2008, and certainly there'll be another 2008 somewhere in history. But in 2008, although private jet sales for me stopped and for the industry stopped, I mean, literally stopped. There was virtually, 10% of the normal volume that occurred in 1 year. But what did happen, charter went through the roof. And the rationale for that is that people that own private jets and their board said, hey, you got to sell this private jet. It's 2008. The world's terrible. They still flew privately. They just chartered so that people didn't see what they were doing and they were able to take the tax write-offs on that rather than own a plane. So it's very interesting how charter wasn't even impacted during 2008, economic crisis. So, and right, wrong, or indifferent, very rarely does somebody start flying privately and stop flying privately. You only stop flying privately because you just don't travel anymore, or your financial situation has changed and it doesn't make sense for you. But it's pretty hard to get off of that bus. I guess probably the wrong term. Hard to get off that jet and get onto a bus, but it just is, and it is what it is. But it's also a growth pattern. Most of our clients get into a light or a mid, and as they grow their business and their success continues, they end up trading that plane, buying a different plane. They keep buying planes, and they keep pushing that forward. And that's just kind of what you're doing, just like you're buying houses and buying cars. And it's interesting.
The second question is, well, we know the airlines are theoretically safe, but how safe is owning your own plane or chartering, comparatively speaking?
Very, very safe. I mean, the guidelines and the requirements for operation that's dictated by the FAA, extremely stringent. The aircraft themselves have, double to triple redundancy on all the, critical components. The maintenance calendars and schedules that are dictated by the manufacturer and by the FAA are driven by the calendar and by how many hours you fly. So even if the plane never flew for 6 months, it has a 6-month inspection. And the point of that inspection is because you want to find things that are trending above the trend line, and they want to catch them before they break. So very rarely are there aviation incidents on private jets or even airliners that they find out later was a mechanical issue. It really, unfortunately, comes down to most often pilot issues. And, pilots rushed, they missed a step, they didn't check this, they didn't check that. That's just, unfortunately, with modern aviation, very rarely is a plane a problem. And when I say that a plane runs out of gas, whose fault's that? It's not the plane, it's the pilot. If the plane, planes don't mysteriously just stop working in midair. There's too much redundancy for that. That would have been somebody didn't follow up on something in the last maintenance schedule. Something wasn't trending right. It just isn't very often that happens. What does happen is, people land in bad conditions. They're taking off in bad conditions. They're flying into Aspen in a snowstorm and tried to land twice. And when they should have just diverted to Rifle or to another larger airport, and they want to land in Aspen, and then they crash in Aspen. And that does happen. And again, unfortunately, that's pilot error. But there is a lot of those things. I wouldn't say there are all those things that happen, but as far as safety, I mean, the same adage for private aviation is the same as commercial aviation. You're much more apt to be killed or injured driving your automobile than you are in a plane.
Well, some people have been talking about buying a seat on a charter. A few years ago, that was a big thing, but I don't hear much about it today.
So the company that was doing that was called JetSmarter. They went bankrupt, and they were acquired by a company called VistaJet. They're still doing some version of that. It's in big markets, Florida, New York, LA to Vegas. They do have per seat purchasing. It's very competitive. It's $800 to $2,000. So it's pretty competitive for hour, 2-hour runs. But it's a challenge because generally speaking, flying privately is about schedules and ability to, hey, I need to leave an hour earlier or an hour later and I'm running late and I want to have this flexibility. And hey, I decided to bring my friend. You don't really have that when you bought a seat. You're just flying a nicer, experience than airlines. And so as appealing as it sounds, oh, let me hop on a private jet and go to Florida for the weekend. And it does exist and you can do it. It's never really proved out to be anything that really sustainable for operators besides the big routes. And they're still doing it those big routes, but the business model that was pioneered by JetSmarter, proved to be inefficient and unsustainable, which was, hey, buy a seat to the buffet and eat all you want. And they thought, well, we'll get everybody buying it and then we'll raise the prices. And it just didn't work, So I was a member of it myself and I did deals with them and I flew it myself several times for free and it was great. But, it's just not sustainable, and it didn't work. So I don't think that model changes. And particularly now when, it's hard to even acquire those kind of aircraft and make any financial sense of it.
And we know your time, so we're going to say what are your last thoughts you'd like to share with our audience and your website one more time?
Sure, it's theprivatejetcompany.com. Should I give you my phone number as well or no?
Well, you can.
Sure. Phone number, if you want to call us, is 310 area code 980-9069. We're always happy to talk to anybody and kind of tell them, sometimes, hey, you shouldn't buy a plane. It doesn't make sense for what you're trying to do. You should charter. You should do this. You should do that. We don't make money on any of that besides buying a plane, and that's fine. It's about helping customers, and one customer leads to another customer, and maybe a guy comes back in 3 years. It's fine. That's part of our business. We tell a lot of people don't buy a jet, and it's just part of being honest and taking care of our customers. But it's a process. It isn't for everybody. It doesn't make sense for some people, and it's not any. I don't want everybody to take away one thing, which is that you can't really get into buying a private jet and think you're going to fly for free by chartering the heck out of it. That just doesn't really work that way. But what does work is the tax benefits, the utilization, and the using it in your business and using it in your personal life, and how to make sense of that we can help you with. And we can kind of walk you through the math. Our tax attorneys can walk you through the tax benefits and how to take advantage of that. I don't know how long that's going to stick around. That's been on the chopping block, and it's one day they will go away with that, but they haven't yet. And that's pretty much it. But we're here to help, and we fortunately are very, very busy at the moment, and expect to be so. Fourth quarter is 50% of the entire industry for people that are tax planning and business and sales. So it's an exciting time. And thank you so much for having us on today, Don.
Well, thank you for certainly explaining the whole thing to us. Thanks a lot, Dan. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.